going into it with the New York bias, quote unquote, that you may or may not have actually had, when you traveled to LA, when you traveled to Atlanta and Houston and different places, what did you learn about rap and how did that affect how you viewed the music and then the hip hop culture?
Well, I realized that it is different. I mean, there's similarities, but it is different. They've got a different flow. As a matter of fact, I mean, that's what was difficult for me because I felt, at first listening to NWA, I didn't think they had the rhythmic style of, a Nas or, guys like that, Biggie. It took me a minute to get behind the style of the music and the way. As a matter of fact, Ice-T, I think, was the one guy that I really did like for whatever reason, back then. I mean, I love it all now, but I definitely had my, favorites and, hearing guys like, KRS-One and Rakim and people like that. It where you grow up, it's just, whether it's the type of syntax and verbiage that to the way you say things, I think it all comes out in the music.
That's for sure. For sure. And with the book itself, the Book of Rhyme and Reason, what made Ice-T the one you wanted to have do the foreword?
Well, again, I think he's one of the most articulate voices. I think he's got a great perspective of the culture. You know, I thought he was one of the best interviews we had in the film. And he did some publicity for us back then, which I really appreciated. I love his photographs in the book. I mean, I mean, that day shooting that stuff was so much fun. But, I just think he has the right outlook, the right, he understands that he's kind of, still with it, but, he's an older guy now, but
Yeah,
he totally gets it. I think he's one of the most important voices in hip hop. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. He also just put out a Crime Stories 3-piece vinyl album that's pretty amazing. That has a lot of his story raps, and that really illustrates and demonstrates his mastery as a storyteller, which you get in the film Rhyme and Reason, you get in the book Rhyme and Reason, and then obviously even the photographs you have in there, they all tell lots of stories. And also there's one too with MC8, and it's a side picture. He's looking down. There's a dog and all that stuff. So, how did you decide, and what was it like with the artists? Some artists really want to look all in the camera and do all this, and some artists are a little more shy is the wrong word, but they're not as needy per se. Of you gotta. So,
Well, yeah, I think actually, I would say it's also the selection of photographs, because I do have a really great portrait of eight. I mean, it's really great. But we went with this other shot. I mean, there was something about that shot that I really loved. It was his dogs, and they're he also, when we did the interview with him, he talked about living in Riverside. About getting, trying to build a better life for his family and that kind of thing. And at the time, I don't know, people really don't talk about it much now, but just like being real, being like, okay, are you still connected to your neighborhood? Are you still connected to your, to your people? Have you gone away? Have you disappeared? So he was explaining that, he was explaining that whole phenomenon at the time. And so I think, seeing a piece of his home where he lived, you could tell it's not South Central, but at the same time, he's got these dogs, man. You know what I mean? Like, 3 huge, Rottweilers,
yeah, no, that's for sure. It's a big difference from Compton. So, with With
I mean, one of the things I'm just thinking of, when we finished the film, we showed RZA and Method Man. You know, I don't know if, yeah. So you finish the film and you're like, oh God, you got to show it to some of the artists. You wonder what they're going to think and whatever. And they open the movie, Rhyme and Reason. I mean, we're on that block, Staten Island, coldest day in February, man. I mean, you can feel the foam coming out of the mouth, all that. Method Man spits this unbelievable rap. We're getting. I mean, this was authentic as you're gonna ever get, right? And we start the movie, and it comes on, and Method Man and Riz are there, and then they go, "Oh my God, God, can you believe this? You see this?" He goes, "Yeah, man. I can't." And they're freaking out. I'm like, "Oh dear God, I'm going to get killed." Right? They hate it. And then they go, "We'll never be this cool again. We'll never be this real again. We'll never be like." And from the time I had shot them to finishing the film, they had already gotten to another place. I mean, it was fascinating. I wish I had a camera to record that conversation, because it was like they realized, oh my God, we're not like this anymore. And this is what we were really about.
hmm. And now, as time has passed, looking at the book Rhyme and Reason in particular, do you have any other memories like that really hit you when you were looking at the photographs in particular?
Oh God, there's so many. I mean, one that is always nostalgic to me is Biggie, going to his house. And we did that interview incredibly at I mean, I'm remembering we either got there at 6:30 in the morning, or that was like we got there at 8 in the morning, something like that. I mean, it was like when they said they wanted to do it at that time, I was like, "Are you sure?" That just seems like it's phenomenally early usually guys were like, check with me at 4 in the afternoon. You know what I mean? But so we get there, and I popped this one photograph off where he was on the phone. He's got very casual in his living room, and it's one of my favorite. It's not like it's a very quick little snapshot, but it having him talk about his life, what it meant to him. I mean, I think he's a little bit different from Tupac, where when Tupac passed away, as tragic as it was, it wasn't like a huge surprise in a way to me. Biggie was different. Biggie, he really loved life, man. I mean, he loved his family, loved his life. I really feel like he was really enjoying the success that he had earned, and that day, he had these plaques that he had just gotten. And I asked him if he would open them up and talk about it. It was so great. It was like he had just gotten his plaques. And, he was really proud of that stuff, man, proud of what he accomplished. And, I think it was that moment where it's like, yeah, I've arrived.
Well, I was going to say, with that and the RZA and Method Man and Biggie, it is amazing that, with artists in particular, when you get to see them revel in the accolades they receive as artists, it's different than the bluster that we get as, oh, for the camera or something. But it's really, you can tell it touches them and it means something to them on a personal, spiritual level. So when you as a filmmaker realize you're capturing this, or as a photographer, how, like, what do you do anything different or special to capture it differently, or how do you react to that?
Dude, I had no idea. I had no idea whatsoever. I mean, I had done quite a bit, in like working with artists, working with, big time musicians, stuff like that. But when you're in the moment like that, I don't ever think you go, oh wow, this is going to be unbelievable stuff, and this is going to be really meaningful to people. And yeah, I, I, uh, I in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't. I feel so blessed to document the culture when it was really incredible. Like I really feel like it was a golden age of hip hop. And when I was doing it at the time, I thought, God, that this kind of stuff will last forever. It's going to keep going. I mean, people pass away, culture changes, the industry changes. Wow, and you're like, wow, it's kind of like, you feel like, wow, you really did do something special without having at the time being cognizant that it was happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the film is definitely a timestamp, and now we have the book Rhyme and Reason a timestamp as well. And when you look at in particular, even the bigger, quote unquote, bigger, more popular artists, they're not all glammed up. They're not all made up. Everything is very natural, I guess you would want to say, or way to say it. So, did
Well,
you?
that's the thing. I don't know if you could even make this film again. I mean, let me tell you, man, when I did it, people wanted to talk about the culture. They wanted to create awareness for it. They saw what I was doing, and they definitely wanted to be a part of it. And how I did it, I didn't do it through managers and record companies. Like if I interviewed Redman, I'd say, hey man, give me one. If you like the interview we did together, give me one guy to interview. Like give me one guy. He might give me Method Man. You know what I mean? So it was really artist by artist until I got to a point, particularly in LA, where there were record people that said, hey, man, we want to help you with this. We really like what you're doing.
And how did that come about, specifically with Priority getting the soundtrack deal?
My partner, Chuck X Block, who was one of the producers and very instrumental in helping us get all of this done, connected with Happy Walters. And he knew Happy. His wife at the time, they were friends. And when we said what we were doing, he was like, hey, you guys probably need a soundtrack. And we're like, yeah, that'd be great. He goes, well, I think I can help you with that. And we're like, yeah, we're totally open. So, and he was doing, also coincidentally, he was doing a lot of music supervising. So Happy has supervised many, many movies, and yeah.
Okay. And with all that, I mean, you had the movie, the soundtrack, and the book. Do you have other things, rhyme and reason related, you're thinking of doing?
You know, a lot of people ask me about Rhyme and Reason too. It's something that I would definitely consider if I had, I've been thinking about the approach or something like that, but not really. I mean, with the given materials that I have now, I did do a documentary on Biggie where I used footage that we shot from Rhyme and Reason, which was sort of like the the way we made the film. We were able to, we had this great footage, and then I got other great archival footage. But specifically about Rhyme and Reason now, I'd entertain something that was interesting, but it would have to be done at a pretty high level. Yeah. I mean, the first time around was really difficult in terms of resources, financially, getting it done. But I do think there's a, possibility for another incarnation.
And why do you think it would be, you wouldn't be able to make it now? Like, what's changed so much?
Well, I think artists are much more protective. I think that their agents and managers are more protective. You know, I don't think the access is the same. It felt, and maybe because I haven't been in it as much, but I just wonder, you know, there's a music side of it too that can get very expensive. A lot of these guys are sold to companies where the companies are like to beat, even though licensing for our film, costs money, but it wasn't crazy. I mean, today I wonder what it would cost to license all these songs that we had in rhyme and reason. It must, so there's that component, that the cost of the music, and what these publishers have paid for it was a lot more than they wanted to pay, and now they're going to try to beat a dollar out of every opportunity they can get.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Well, Peter Spirer, you got the new book, the Book on Rhyme and Reason, in stores worldwide now. Definitely pick up a copy if you haven't already. It's a great, great piece there. Thank you for that. Anything else you want to add about the book or the film? Or
Well, I just want to thank you, Soren, for being a part of it, for helping out, and helping out with the text and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was very, very valuable to our book.
We're glad to play a very small part. But yes, exciting stuff.
Okay.
Well, there it is. Well, thanks for coming through, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.